Something wasn't right with these numbers. I stared at my computer screen, rubbing my lower back as my unborn daughter shifted restlessly. The quarterly financial reports from our Singapore office showed a pattern that made no sense, unless someone was deliberately obscuring transactions. I'm Rachel Chin, 34 years old, and until recently, I was the senior financial analyst at Global Dynamics Corporation, a position I'd held for 6 years. My specialty was identifying patterns in complex financial data, finding irregularities that others missed. It's what had earned me rapid promotions and the trust of our CFO, Marcus Thompson. At least, that's what I thought. "Rachel, you look troubled," Sarah whispered, peering over my cubicle wall. My closest friend at work, she'd been keeping an extra eye on me since I entered my 3rd trimester. "Is it the baby?" "No, it's these reports," I murmured, gesturing at my screen. "Look at these transfers. They're structured to appear routine, but the amounts don't match our typical operating patterns." Sarah frowned, her accounting background allowing her to quickly grasp what I was seeing. "How long has this been going on?" "At least 18 months, I replied, pulling up a spreadsheet where I'd been tracking the anomalies. Small discrepancies at first, easily dismissed as rounding errors or currency fluctuations. But they're getting bolder. This quarter alone, there's over $2.7 million that I can't properly trace. Have you told Marcus?" I shook my head, one hand absently rubbing my swollen belly. "Not yet. I want to be absolutely certain before I raise any alarms. This kind of pattern usually indicates money laundering," Sarah finished quietly. "Rachel, be careful. Remember what happened to Jim in compliance when he started asking questions about the Dubai contracts." I remembered. Jim had been let go during a restructuring that somehow only affected his department. His replacement never followed up on his concerns. "I'll be fine," I assured her. "I'm due to start maternity leave in 3 weeks anyway. I just need to document everything properly first." That evening, I stayed late at the office, methodically copying files and taking screenshots of the suspicious transactions. My background in forensic accounting before joining Global Dynamics had taught me the importance of thorough documentation. Every anomaly was cataloged, every pattern noted, with timestamps and system logs to prove when I'd accessed the information. As I worked, my daughter kicked vigorously, as if sensing my tension. "Easy there, little one," I murmured. "Mommy just needs to finish this." I was so focused on my task that I barely noticed Marcus walking past my desk, stopping when he saw me still working. "Rachel, it's almost 8. You should be home resting." I quickly minimized my screens, smiling up at our CFO. In his mid-50s, Marcus had always projected a fatherly image, but something in his expression tonight made me uneasy. "Just wrapping up some quarterly analyses," I said casually. "Want everything organized before my leave starts." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on my computer screens. "Anything concerning?" "Nothing urgent," I lied smoothly. "Standard variance analysis." Good, he said. "Don't stay too late. Your health needs to come first right now." After he left, I quickly finished copying the last set of files to my personal encrypted drive. Something about Marcus's appearance had triggered my instincts. Why was he still here this late? His calendar had shown him in meetings off-site all afternoon. The next morning, I couldn't shake my sense of unease. I arrived early, planning to secure one final set of records, but my computer wouldn't boot up. System maintenance, our egg help desk, told me when I called. Several terminals are affected. should be resolved by afternoon. But when I tried to log into the financial system from Sarah's computer, my credentials were denied. "That's weird," Sarah said, watching me try again. "Want me to log in with my ID?" I started to answer, but a sharp pain cut through my lower abdomen. "Rachel?" Sarah's voice seemed to come from far away as another contraction hit. I gasped, "the baby has other plans." Everything happened quickly after that. Sarah called an ambulance while our office administrator notified my husband, James. By the time James met me at the hospital, I was already in active labor. 8 hours later, Emma Grace Chen came into the world, 3 weeks early, but perfectly healthy. In the joyful chaos of those first days with Emma, I almost forgot about the financial irregularities I'd discovered. Almost. But during late-night feedings, as I cradled my daughter, my mind kept returning to those numbers, to Marcus's odd behavior, to my mysteriously timed computer issues. I had just finished feeding Emma one morning, 18 days into my maternity leave, when my phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. "Rachel," he said, his voice professionally sympathetic. "I hope you and the baby are doing well." "We are, thank you," I replied, suddenly alert despite my exhaustion. "I'm calling because we've had to make some difficult decisions regarding departmental structure. In reviewing our operations, we've determined that your position has become redundant." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I wasn't entirely surprised. "I see," I said calmly, years of professional training keeping my voice steady. "And this couldn't wait until I returned from maternity leave." "The changes are effective immediately," Marcus continued, ignoring my question. "Given your years of service, we're offering 8 weeks severance, contingent upon signing a standard release agreement. HR will email the paperwork shortly." "What about my maternity benefits?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Unfortunately, those terminate with your employment, but COBRA information will be included in your packet." After Marcus hung up, I sat in the nursery rocking chair, holding Emma close as I processed what had just happened. They'd waited until I was on leave, vulnerable, exhausted from newborn care, to terminate me. They probably expected me to sign whatever they sent quickly, grateful for any severance while dealing with a new baby. They didn't know I'd spent 15 years learning how financial criminals think, how they hide their tracks, how they silence potential threats. They didn't know that every suspicious transaction, every irregularity I'd found was safely documented and stored away from company servers. Most importantly, they didn't know that 2 days before going into labor, I'd sent a detailed letter to myself via certified mail, documenting my concerns and the exact locations of my evidence. A simple lawyer's trick, establishing a paper trail and timestamp that couldn't be erased. I looked down at Emma, peacefully sleeping in my arms. "Your mommy may be sleep-deprived," I whispered, "but she's not stupid." Opening my laptop one-handed, I began composing 2 emails. The first to Lisa Martinez, my former colleague at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. The second to Robert Chen, my brother and one of the top forensic accounting partners at Deloitte. The next few weeks would be interesting indeed. Sarah called that evening, furious about my termination. "The official story is that your role was eliminated in a restructuring," she said, her voice tight with anger. "But they've already posted a job opening that looks suspiciously like your position with a different title." "Have they?" I said mildly, making notes. "That's interesting." "Rachel, this isn't right. It has to be related to what you found in those reports. Marcus has been acting strange ever since you left. having closed-door meetings with people from the Singapore office. And this morning, they announced a systems upgrade that's limiting access to historical financial records. They're covering their tracks, I said, unsurprised. Have they announced my replacement yet? That's another thing. They're bringing in someone from Singapore, David Wong. He worked with Marcus at his previous company. I remembered seeing Wong's name on several of the suspicious transactions. Perfect, I murmured. What are you going to do? Sarah asked. Right now, I'm going to feed my daughter, I replied. But tomorrow? Tomorrow, I start showing Global Dynamics exactly what happens when you underestimate a new mother who knows where all the bodies are buried. I spent the next few days reviewing my evidence while Emma napped. The pattern was clearer now that I could see it all together. The Singapore office was being used to launder money from somewhere, likely one of our Chinese manufacturing partners. Small amounts at first, disguised as routine business transactions, but growing bolder as they went undetected. Except I had detected them, and I had proof. The severance agreement arrived by email, along with a letter formally documenting my termination due to organizational restructuring. The terms were insulting: 8 weeks' pay in exchange for waiving all claims against the company, including any rights to report suspected wrongdoing to regulatory authorities. They really should have had better lawyers review that agreement. I was feeding Emma when Robert called. "Little sister," he said, his tone serious despite the affectionate greeting. "I've reviewed everything you sent. This isn't small-time creative accounting. We're looking at systematic money laundering, potentially tens of millions. How long have you known?" "I started noticing patterns about 3 months ago," I replied, adjusting Emma as she fussed. "But I didn't have concrete proof until just before going into labor." "And they fired you as soon as you went on leave. Convenient timing." "Very," I agreed. "What do you think?" "I think," Robert said slowly, "that Global Dynamics is about to learn why it's a bad idea to mess with my sister. Lisa's team at the FBI is very interested in your documentation. They're particularly intrigued by the connections to certain Chinese companies that have been under investigation." "How interested?" "Interested enough that they want to meet as soon as you're up for it. They're willing to come to you, given the baby." I looked down at Emma, now sleeping peacefully. "Tell them I'm available tomorrow afternoon. It's time to show Marcus that maternity leave doesn't mean I've lost my teeth." The next day, as I sat in my living room with 2 FBI financial crimes investigators and my brother, I realized that my termination might have been the best thing that could have happened. Free from corporate constraints, I could finally share everything I'd found. "The real sophistication is in how they layered the transactions," I explained, pointing to a flowchart I'd created. "See how each transfer seems legitimate in isolation. It's only when you map them all together that the pattern emerges." Special Agent Martinez nodded appreciatively. "This is detailed work, Rachel. Most people would have missed these connections. Most people didn't spend 3 years tracking money launderers in Asia," I replied. I recognized the methodology. It's similar to cases I worked on before joining Global Dynamics, which they would have known if they'd actually checked your background, Robert added with a smile. "Their mistake," I agreed, shifting Emma in my arms as she stirred. "What happens next?" "We'll need to move carefully," Agent Martinez said. "We've been building a case against several of these Chinese companies for months. Your evidence could be the key to unraveling their entire network. But if Global Dynamics gets wind of the investigation too soon, they'll destroy evidence," I finished. "They're already trying." Sarah told me they're doing a systems upgrade that's limiting access to historical records. Classic covering of tracks, Robert muttered. We'll need to move fast. How would you like to handle this, Rachel? Agent Martinez asked. You could be a confidential informant, or we could take a more direct approach. I considered my options carefully. Part of me wanted to stay in the shadows, to let the FBI handle everything while I focused on my daughter. But another part, the part that had spent years building my career, that had worked through difficult pregnancies and morning sickness to earn my position, wanted justice. Direct approach, I decided. They tried to silence me by firing me when I was most vulnerable. I want them to know exactly who brought them down. Agent Martinez smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. We'll need you to do something that might feel uncomfortable. I raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? Sign their severance agreement. What? Robert interjected. That would waive her rights to. No, I interrupted, suddenly understanding. It wouldn't. That clause about reporting to regulatory authorities, it's unenforceable. Dodd-Frank specifically protects whistleblowers regardless of any severance agreements. Exactly, Agent Martinez confirmed. Sign it. Let them think you're cowed and desperate. Meanwhile, we'll set up surveillance and start following the money trail you've uncovered. I looked down at Emma, sleeping peacefully against my chest. How long do you need? Give us 2 weeks to get everything in place. Then we move. I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. 2 weeks is perfect. Just long enough for them to think they've won. Just long enough for Marcus to get comfortable. Just long enough, I thought but didn't say, to remind Global Dynamics that they should have checked exactly what I knew before trying to discard me. That evening, I signed the severance agreement and emailed it back to HR. Then I composed one more email to Marcus himself. Thank you for the opportunity to work at Global Dynamics, I wrote, keeping my tone professional and slightly desperate. I understand that business needs change. I appreciate the severance offer and hope we can maintain a positive professional relationship. Let him think I was backing down quietly. Let him think maternal exhaustion and financial pressure had defanged me. In 2 weeks, he would learn just how wrong he was. 2 weeks passed quickly in the haze of newborn care. Emma settled into a routine, giving me precious hours between feedings to refine my documentation and coordinate with the FBI team. Sarah kept me updated on developments at Global Dynamics, each piece of news confirming that we were on the right track. They're rushing through the system upgrades, she texted one evening. It is working overtime to migrate financial records. Everyone's locked out of the archives until it's complete. Perfect. They were doing exactly what we'd anticipated, creating an electronic trail of their attempts to hide evidence. Each deleted file, each modified record would only strengthen the case against them. David Wong, my replacement, had arrived from Singapore and immediately begun implementing new protocols for financial reporting. According to Sarah, he called an all-hands meeting to announce that historical records were being standardized to match international formats. He keeps emphasizing that any discrepancies we notice are just conversion artifacts, Sarah reported. But Rachel, some of these numbers don't make sense even after conversion. Document everything, I told her, but don't raise any flags. Let them think everyone's accepting their explanations. The FBI surveillance was already yielding results. Agent Martinez called with updates every few days, her excitement growing as they mapped the network of transactions I'd uncovered. The money trail leads to 3 shell companies in the Cayman Islands, she told me during one call, all connected to a Chinese manufacturing conglomerate that's been on our radar for years. We've never been able to prove how they were moving funds to legitimate businesses until now. How much are we talking about? I asked, burping Emma after her morning feeding. Initial estimates suggest over 50 million in laundered funds over the past 2 years. But that's just what we can trace through global dynamics. There could be more through other companies. I whistled softly. No wonder they were so quick to push me out when I started noticing patterns. About that, Agent Martinez said, her tone shifting. We've been monitoring Marcus Thompson's communications. He's been in regular contact with executives at the Chinese company, discussing something they call Project Phoenix. Does that mean anything to you? I frowned, thinking back. There was a meeting about Project Phoenix just before I went on leave. Marcus said it was a potential joint venture, but the financial projections seemed optimistic. It's not a joint venture, Agent Martinez replied. Based on intercepted emails, it's their plan to acquire Global Dynamics outright, using funds from the same accounts you flagged. The pieces clicked into place. They're not just using Global Dynamics to launder money. They're trying to buy the company with laundered funds. Exactly. And based on the timeline we've uncovered, the deal is supposed to close next month. I thought about the implications. A Chinese company with known ties to money laundering would gain control of a respected American corporation, using illegal funds to do it. The potential for expanded financial crimes would be enormous. What's our next move? I asked. We're ready to act, Agent Martinez said, but we need one more piece of evidence. Proof that Global Dynamics leadership knowingly participated in the money laundering scheme. I smiled, remembering something I hadn't yet shared. Check your email in 5 minutes. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and retrieved a file I'd been saving for the right moment. 3 days before going into labor, I'd recorded a meeting with Marcus, standard practice for all our financial reviews. But this meeting had been different. These transfers from Singapore, I'd said, pointing to specific transactions. The amounts don't align with our normal business operations. Marcus had waved off my concerns. It's all been approved at the highest levels, part of our expansion strategy. But the documentation doesn't support that, I'd pressed. These look more like... Like what, Rachel? His tone had sharpened. Like money laundering, I'd said directly. The patterns match known techniques for disguising the source of funds. Marcus had stared at me for a long moment before responding. You're very observant, Rachel. Too observant. Some things are better left unnoticed, for everyone's sake. It wasn't just a smoking gun, it was a confession. I attached the recording to an email and sent it to Agent Martinez. Her response came within minutes. This is exactly what we needed. Be ready tomorrow morning. And Rachel, you might want to watch the financial news. The next day, I was feeding Emma when my phone exploded with notifications. Global Dynamics stock had been suspended from trading pending a major announcement. Sarah called moments later. The FBI just walked into the office, she said in a rushed whisper. Dozens of agents. They're seizing computers and files. Marcus is being led out in handcuffs. I switched on CNBC just in time to see the breaking news banner. Global Dynamics CEO and CFO arrested in international money laundering investigation. The reporters were scrambling to piece together the story, but the basic facts were already emerging. A months-long FBI investigation had uncovered a massive money laundering operation involving Global Dynamics and several Chinese companies. Arrests were being made on both sides of the Pacific. My phone rang again. Agent Martinez. Turn on the news, she said without preamble. Already watching, I replied. How's Marcus enjoying his new accessories? Not as much as he's going to enjoy what comes next. We're about to announce the role of a corporate whistleblower whose evidence broke the case. Ready to go public? I looked down at Emma, who gazed back with her father's dark eyes. More than ready. The next hours passed in a blur. My name hit the news cycles by noon. By dinner, every major financial publication had the story. New mother uncovered $1 million money laundering scheme during maternity leave. The details captivated everyone. The pregnant analyst who spotted financial irregularities, the company that tried to silence her by firing her during maternity leave, the evidence she'd gathered before giving birth. Forums lit up with discussions about corporate ethics and women in finance. James came home early, bringing champagne he insisted I deserved, even if I was still nursing. To my brilliant wife, he toasted, who brought down an international crime ring while caring for our newborn. But the real satisfaction came the next morning when Robert called with an update from his contacts at Global Dynamics. The board called an emergency meeting, he reported. They're in full panic mode. The stock is going to tank when trading resumes. Marcus and the CEO are looking at serious prison time. And guess what they found in Marcus's emails? Tell me. Explicit discussions about firing you because you were getting too close to their scheme. He specifically mentioned timing it during your maternity leave when you'd be too overwhelmed to fight back. I laughed. How'd that work out for him? Not great, especially since those emails make it a clear case of wrongful termination and pregnancy discrimination on top of everything else. The board wants to settle. They're offering full reinstatement, back pay, accelerated stock options, and a promotion to VP of Financial Compliance. Not interested, I said immediately. I have other plans. Those plans had begun taking shape during my late-night feedings with Emma. The FBI cases had reminded me how much I'd enjoyed forensic accounting, tracking down financial criminals, bringing justice to sophisticated fraud schemes. Actually, I said to Robert, I've been thinking about starting my own firm, specializing in forensic accounting and fraud detection. Think Deloitte might be interested in a partnership. Are you kidding? After this case? Every major firm in the country will be calling you. He was right. By the end of the week, I had meetings scheduled with 3 of the Big 4 accounting firms, all interested in establishing forensic accounting partnerships. The SEC had reached out about consulting on complex fraud investigations, and 2 universities wanted me to guest lecture on financial crimes detection. But the most satisfying call came from Lisa at the FBI. The U.S. Attorney's Office wants to talk to you, she said, about testifying against Marcus and the others. When? Next month. They're particularly interested in how you identified the money laundering patterns. And Rachel? They're very aware that you did most of this work while preparing for maternity leave. I smiled, watching Emma sleep in her bassinet beside my desk. Tell them I'm happy to help. I'll just need breaks for feeding the baby. Of course, Lisa laughed. We wouldn't want your daughter to miss watching her mother take down an international crime ring. The headlines continued for weeks. Global Dynamics stock plummeted when trading resumed. The Chinese company's executives were arrested in Hong Kong. David Wong was caught trying to flee to Malaysia with a hard drive full of incriminating documents. Marcus and the CEO were looking at decades in federal prison for money laundering, securities fraud, and conspiracy. The evidence I'd gathered, combined with the FBI's broader investigation had created an airtight case. Sarah called one evening, still processing everything that had happened. "The office is chaos," she reported. "Internal auditors everywhere, external investigators combing through every transaction. And you know what's crazy? They found even more suspicious patterns once they started really looking. This thing is bigger than anyone realized." "How's morale?" I asked, genuinely curious about my former colleagues. "Mixed. Some people are scared about their jobs. Others are angry they were deceived. But mostly, people keep talking about you. How you figured it all out while you were pregnant. How you gathered evidence even when you were about to give birth. You're like a legend now." I laughed. "Hardly. I just did my job." "While creating new life," Sarah insisted. "It's inspiring, Rachel. You showed everyone that becoming a mother doesn't make you less capable. If anything, it made you more formidable." Looking down at Emma, peacefully nursing as I reviewed case documents for the prosecution, I had to agree. Motherhood hadn't weakened me. It had made me fiercer, more determined to fight for what was right. 3 months after my terminated maternity leave, I sat in my new office, Emma asleep in a bassinet beside me. The wall held my framed FBI commendation and news articles about the case. My desk displayed a photo of Emma wearing a onesie Sarah had given her. My mom fights financial crime. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Martinez. "Marcus took a plea deal. 15 years minimum. Sending you the press release before it goes public." I smiled, remembering his dismissive tone during that termination call. He thought firing me during maternity leave would silence me, that a new mother would be too overwhelmed to fight back. He'd never considered that becoming a mother would make me fight harder. My new consulting firm was thriving, with a growing list of clients seeking fraud detection expertise. I'd hired Sarah away from Global Dynamics to be my operations director, and we were building a team of analysts who shared our passion for uncovering financial crimes. Best of all, I set my own schedule, allowing me to balance complex investigations with Emma's needs. The bassinet in my office raised some eyebrows at first, but my results spoke for themselves. If anything, having Emma nearby sharpened my focus. Every financial criminal we caught made the business world a little safer for her future. 1 year to the day after my termination, I received an email from Global Dynamics' new CEO. They were still rebuilding their reputation, struggling to restore trust with investors and clients. Would I consider consulting on their new compliance procedures? I drafted a simple reply. My consulting rate is $5,000 per hour, with a minimum engagement of 100 hours. Additional fees apply for any work conducted during traditional maternity leave hours. Emma, now crawling and babbling, pulled herself up on my desk as I hit send. I lifted her into my lap, breathing in her sweet baby scent. "Never let anyone tell you that motherhood makes you weak," I whispered. "It makes you unstoppable." The next generation of financial criminals would learn that lesson the hard way. They'd learn that underestimating a mother's strength, determination, and capacity for justice was a very expensive mistake. And if they didn't? Well, Emma would be old enough for show and tell soon. Maybe she'd like to visit Mommy's office and watch another corporate criminal learn that vital lesson. After all, the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth. It's teaching our daughters that they never have to choose between motherhood and justice. They can deliver both, sometimes even during maternity leave.